It's not very often in this country that we sing the praises of 60s architecture. Brutalist concrete buildings, so loved by modernist architects and designers like me, yet so loathed by the general public. There was, and still is, an exception. And because of that, it's become an important part of our heritage. The concrete and glass structure has been defining London's skyline for 50 years. Right from the very beginning, it captured the public imagination, and over time has won over its affection. I am talking about, of course, the BT Tower.
In 1965, the tower opened to great acclaim. It marked a time of profound change, when Britain, for the first time in decades, was looking forward to an exciting future.
As the rubble of the Second World War was cleared away, new and taller buildings began to rise. In a few years, the look of London changed entirely, and nothing changed it more than the building that was eventually to dominate the skyline.
Now, you could say that the tower isn't really hidden heritage at all, given the fact you can see it from pretty much everywhere in London. But actually, it was closed to the public in the 1980s, so very few people actually get a chance to see it up close.
So today, I'm really rather privileged, as I'm going to be allowed to explore the whole structure, including the famous revolving restaurant and even the roof itself. But first of all, I want to find out how 13,000 tons of reinforced concrete is held up. So I'm heading somewhere truly hidden, an area that hasn't seen the light of day since the early 60s.
This incredible space is the base of the tower. It's the foundation. It's an incredible, enormous concrete pyramid that holds it up. Now, the way this foundation works is that the tower sits in the top of the middle of the pyramid there. And this great big construction here is actually just to spread that weight out, to give it a wider base, to make it a bit more stable. But this is not the bottom of the foundation even here. There's another 50 metres of concrete going right down through the London clay. Because of the sensitivity of those microwave transmitters, the tower couldn't rock. Now, normally, a tall building will actually sway quite a lot in the wind, but this one couldn't, so it had to be super stiff.
80 feet up, that stiffness was reinforced by a collar, clasping the core shaft of the building tightly, holding all the tower's vital equipment firmly in place. Technology and communication were the buzzwords of the 60s, and they were the very reason the tower was constructed. It became the country's biggest telephone exchange and microwave transmitter, beaming out communication signals across the UK.
Putting it simply, microwaves carry radio signals of very, very short wavelength. Like light, they travel in straight lines. And like light, they're lost to view, or use as it were, by the curvature of the Earth's surface.
But beyond the technology, the Post Office Tower, as it was first called, was a global symbol of Britain in the throes of modernisation. Built with public money and with viewing platforms open to visitors, in the swinging 60s the tower was an instant hit. The 34th floor restaurant was quite literally revolutionary.
To the restaurant level, and
the man who opened the tower to those first public visitors is with me today, the then Postmaster General, Tony Benn.
So was this like one of the hottest tables in town when it was?
Well, it was certainly very popular because it gave you such a fantastic view of London. So you could book a table here.
And see the whole of London while
Yes.
you had your main course?
Yes, you could, yes.
Why do you think this building is held in such affection by so many people? Because it's an intensely modern building, but people really love it.
Well, I have a special feeling for it, having been here when it was opened and so on. But it was seen as a symbol of the age into which we were moving. And then we had the opening with Billy Butlin ran this restaurant, and the Queen came, and it was a great event.
Now, I understand that actually it's still turns.
Well, I hope it does. It'd be very nice if it did.
Should we go and see if we can get it working?
Yes. Who knows where the button is?
I don't know.
Last time I was...
With the restaurant and the tower long since closed to the public, something of an urban myth seems to have developed that the 34th floor no longer rotates. But as you can see, when VIPs ask nicely, it clearly does. Furthermore, the engineering is unchanged since the 1960s.
Well, I've always thought what a wonderful place to have a state banquet. So you'd have the Queen or the Prime Minister here, and the guests would go by.
So when you have that awkward silence, you just sort of drift gracefully off.
Yes, you drift off, that's right, and then come back again, and you'd have forgotten what it was about.
Whilst state dinners never quite made it here, the 34th floor was certainly an exclusive spot, the capital's first high-level vantage point. But it's not quite the best view of all. Today, I'm being allowed to venture even higher.
Right. I am now 180 metres above the streets of London, and I've got a 360-degree view. It's stunning. There's Wembley over there, you can just see the arch. And then just the whole of central London spread right before you out to the countryside, to the Olympic Park. Absolutely fantastic.
Throughout the late 60s and 70s, the tower was the tallest building in London. Incredibly, it stole the title from a building that had held it for 250 years, St Paul's Cathedral. In the past, we built tall to reach towards heaven.
But the construction of this tower changed all of that. It wasn't built to point towards God, it was built to point towards the telephones and TV sets.
But technology has come a long way since 1965, and Londoners may have noticed that the famous horns and dishes that the tower was built to support have recently disappeared. Getting a closer look involves a very scary step off the side of the tower.
Hope you like heights, Charlie.
In 2011, Bob Simon was part of the team responsible for dismantling an era of communication technology.
There's nothing on the outside here that's sort of transmitting and receiving information.
As in the core stuff, which used to carry all the radio and the TV, nothing like that at all on the building whatsoever.
How big were the horns?
The horns were approximately 9 metres in height.
So you lifted them from up there, then dropped them down onto one of these decks?
Correct.
And then just cut them up?
Yep. Yeah.
And then how'd you get them down from there?
Well, we had to cut them up into small enough pieces to get them into the lift.
So you cut those, because they were massive.
Huge. You can imagine the size of pieces that we had to cut them up into to get them down.
The BT Tower is still very much in use, but the important stuff no longer happens up there at the top on display. It happens down here at the base. This is the International Media Centre, and the vast majority of mainstream TV is managed through here. In fact, you're probably watching me on technology controlled just there. But that information is no longer sent through the air. It goes underground on fibre optic cables, and those cables go under the Channel, to the continent, under the Atlantic, to America and beyond. So this building is connected, hardwired into a massive spider's web that circumnavigates the globe.
So here we have a very rare thing indeed. A working 60s building made of concrete, but one that undoubtedly holds our affections.
But there's much more to the BT Tower than just a gleaming modernist structure born in the optimism of the 1960s. It stands, I think, as a triumph of its function, communication. Now, the technology might have moved on, but its place in our heritage is assured because it stands as the original hub of modern Britain.